The most beautiful places on Earth. The engine hummed softly beneath the wings as the plane cut through a sky painted in gold and violet. Somewhere far below, continents drifted past like dreams half remembered. Amira pressed her forehead gently against the window, her breath fogging the glass. She wasn't just traveling, she was chasing something. Beauty, she whispered. Not the kind found in photographs or postcards, not the kind filtered and perfected. She was searching for the kind that changes you, the kind that leaves a mark on your soul. And this was only the beginning. Where the earth breathes fire. The first place didn't welcome her gently. Iceland. The air smelled faintly of sulfur, and the land looked like it had been forged by giants. Black volcanic fields stretched endlessly, interrupted by sudden bursts of green moss that glowed like something alive. Amira stood at the edge of a geothermal valley. Steam rose from the ground in ghostly swirls. Beneath her feet, the earth pulsed with quiet power. A geyser erupted without warning, boiling water shooting high into the air, catching the sunlight in shimmering arcs. She laughed. It wasn't delicate beauty, it was raw, violent, alive. Later that night, wrapped in layers against the biting cold, she looked up and the sky answered. The northern lights. They moved like silk across the heavens, ribbons of green and violet dancing in silence. The stars stood still while the sky itself seemed to breathe. Amira felt small, but in the best possible way. For the first time, she understood beauty didn't need to be gentle. Sometimes it roared. The desert was the opposite. In Namibia, the world stretched into an endless sea of sand. Dunes rose like frozen waves, painted in shades of orange and crimson under the burning sun. Here, there was no noise, no distractions, just wind. Amira climbed one of the tallest dunes before sunrise. Each step sank into the sand, her breath growing heavier, her legs trembling. At the top, she turned. The horizon glowed. Slowly, the sun rose, and the desert came alive. Shadows stretched long and sharp. The curves of the dunes deepened, becoming sculptures carved by time itself. It was silent, but not empty. It felt ancient, patient. She sat there for a long time, saying nothing, doing nothing, just watching. And somehow, that was enough. A city above the clouds. Peru greeted her with thin air and towering mountains. The path to Machu Picchu wasn't easy. The trail wound through steep cliffs and dense jungle, each step a test of endurance. But when she finally reached the top, she stopped breathing. The ancient city lay before her, wrapped in mist, perched impossibly between emerald peaks. Stone terraces cascaded down the mountainside, and the ruins whispered stories older than memory. Clouds drifted through the ruins like passing spirits. Amira walked slowly, almost reverently, as if afraid to disturb something sacred. "How did they build this?" she murmured. No one answered, but maybe that was the point. Some beauty doesn't explain itself, it simply exists. Defying logic, demanding wonder. The ocean that glows. In the Maldives, night didn't mean darkness. Amira walked barefoot along the shore, the waves lapping gently at her feet. The sky was heavy with stars, but it was the water that stole her breath. Each step she took lit up the ocean. Bioluminescent plankton shimmered beneath the surface, glowing like scattered stardust. Every movement sparked light, tiny galaxies forming and dissolving with each ripple. She stepped into the water, laughing like a child. The sea responded. Light surrounded her, dancing with her, alive in a way she had never imagined. For a moment, she felt like she wasn't standing in the ocean, she was standing in the universe. The forest that remembers. Japan was quiet in a different way. In the ancient forests of Yakushima, time moved differently. Moss covered everything, stones, roots, even fallen trees, as if the forest was gently reclaiming all things. The trees were massive, twisted, wise. Some were thousands of years old. Amira walked along a narrow path, the sound of her footsteps softened by the thick green carpet beneath her. Rain began to fall, not in drops, but in whispers. She stopped beneath one enormous cedar tree, placing her hand against its bark. It felt alive, not just in a biological sense, but something deeper, as if the tree held memories, stories. She closed her eyes. For a brief moment, the world outside disappeared. No past, no future, just now. The forest didn't demand anything from her. It didn't try to impress her. It simply existed. And that, she realized, was its magic. The ice that sings. Antarctica was unlike anywhere else. Cold beyond imagination, vast beyond comprehension. Amira stood on the deck of a small expedition ship as glaciers rose like frozen cathedrals around her. The air was so crisp it almost hurt to breathe. Then she heard it, a low, haunting sound. At first, she thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. It was the ice. Glaciers cracked and shifted, releasing deep, resonant tones that echoed across the frozen landscape. A massive chunk of ice broke away and crashed into the sea, sending waves rolling outward. She didn't flinch, she just watched. Here, beauty wasn't comforting, it was overwhelming, a reminder of how small humans are in the grand scale of the planet. And yet, she felt privileged to witness it, to be here. The colors of life. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, the world exploded with color. Bright birds flashed through the canopy like living jewels. Butterflies the size of her hand drifted lazily through shafts of sunlight. The air was thick, humid, alive with sound. Chirps, calls, rustling leaves. Everything moved, everything breathed. Amira followed a narrow river, the water reflecting the dense green world above it. She paused as a group of pink river dolphins surfaced briefly, their sleek bodies gliding silently before disappearing again. She laughed. It wasn't delicate beauty, it was couple, violent, alive. The place that changed everything. Her final destination wasn't the most famous. There were no crowds, no cameras, just a small village tucked between mountains. It didn't have a name that appeared in travel guides. It wasn't marked on most maps, but it had something the others didn't. People. Amira spent days there, sharing meals, listening to stories, laughing with strangers who quickly became friends. There were no grand landscapes, no dramatic skies, just simple moments. A child's laughter echoing through narrow streets, the warmth of freshly baked bread, the quiet comfort of sitting beside someone without needing to speak. One evening, she sat outside as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. It was beautiful, but it wasn't the view that moved her. It was how she felt, connected, present, at peace. What beauty really means. On her flight home, Amira looked out the window once more. The world stretched endlessly below her. Oceans, mountains, forests, deserts. So many beautiful places. But now, she understood something she hadn't before. Beauty isn't just what you see, it's what you feel. It's the silence of a desert sunrise, the power of a glacier's song, the quiet wisdom of ancient trees. And sometimes, it's the simplest things. A moment, a connection, a feeling you can't quite explain. Amira smiled softly, closing her eyes. Her journey wasn't over, because the most beautiful places on Earth aren't just destinations, they're experiences, and they're waiting everywhere. The mountain that touches the sky. After returning home, Amira thought the journey was over, but something inside her had changed. The world no longer felt distant, it felt unfinished. So she left again. This time, her path led her to the towering heights of Nepal, the Himalayas. The air was thinner here than anywhere she had ever been. Each breath felt earned, each step carried weight. But the mountains, they were beyond anything she had imagined. Massive peaks rose into the sky, their snow-covered summits glowing under the sun like they belonged to another world. Amira stood at a viewpoint as dawn began to break. At first, the mountains were shadows. Then, light touched them. Soft pink, then gold, and suddenly the highest peaks in the world were on fire with sunlight. She felt her chest tighten, not from the altitude, but from something deeper. A quiet realization. These mountains had stood here for millions of years, through storms, through time, through everything. And yet, they remained, unshaken, unmoved, unchanged. Amira whispered to herself, "What does it take to stand like that?" The wind answered only with silence, but she understood. Strength can be quiet, power can be still, and sometimes beauty is found in endurance. The mirror of the earth. Her next destination felt like stepping onto another planet. Bolivia, the Salar de Uyuni. At first glance, it was just a vast white desert, salt stretching endlessly in all directions. But after the rain, everything changed. A thin layer of water covered the surface, turning the ground into a perfect mirror. The sky didn't sit above anymore, it surrounded her. Clouds stretched beneath her feet. The horizon disappeared completely, blending earth and sky into one infinite space. Amira walked slowly, almost afraid to break the illusion. Each step sent ripples across the reflection, distorting the world for just a moment before it settled again. She looked around. There was no up, no down, just endlessness. For the first time, she felt disoriented in a way that wasn't frightening. It was freeing. As if the boundaries she had always known didn't matter here. As if the world was bigger and simpler than she had ever believed. She laughed softly. Because in a place where everything reflects, you can't help but reflect too. The city that never sleeps. After so much silence, the next place was a shock. Tokyo. Lights, motion, energy. The city pulsed like a living organism. People moved in every direction, crossing streets in perfect chaos. Neon signs glowed in every color imaginable, reflecting off glass and steel. It was overwhelming, and yet beautiful. Amira stood at a busy intersection, watching the world rush past her. No mountains, no oceans, no ancient forests, just people. Thousands of lives intersecting for brief moments, then moving on. At first, it felt disconnected, but the longer she watched, the more she saw. A man laughing into his phone, a child holding her mother's hand, friends sharing a quiet conversation in the middle of the noise. Beauty wasn't missing here. It was hidden in the details, in the movement, in the rhythm of life itself. Amira smiled. Even here, beauty existed. The storm that reminds you. Not all beauty comes gently. Some of it arrives with force. Amira found herself on a remote coastline, watching dark clouds gather over the ocean. The air felt heavy, charged. The storm rolled in slowly at first, then all at once. Waves crashed violently against the rocks. Wind howled, pulling at everything in its path. Lightning split the sky open, followed by thunder that shook the ground beneath her feet. She should have been afraid, but she wasn't. She stood there, unmoving, watching the chaos unfold, because it was beautiful. Not in a calm, peaceful way, but in a raw, undeniable truth. The world isn't always gentle. It isn't always quiet. But even in its most powerful moments, it's still breathtaking. And maybe that's the point. The road that never ends. Somewhere along her journey, Amira stopped chasing destinations. Instead, she started following roads. Long, winding roads that stretched across landscapes connecting places she had never heard of. She drove through valleys, along coastlines, across open plains where the horizon felt infinite. Sometimes she stopped, sometimes she didn't, and she realized something unexpected. The journey itself had become the destination. It wasn't about reaching the next place anymore. It was about everything in between. The quiet moments, the unexpected views, the feeling of not knowing what comes next. For the first time, she wasn't searching. She was simply experiencing. The night full of stars. One night, far from any city, she stopped. No lights, no noise, just darkness. She stepped out and looked up. The sky exploded with stars. Thousands, millions, more than she could ever count. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light, clear and bright in a way she had never seen before. Amira lay down on the ground, staring upward. And for a moment, everything else disappeared. No past, no future, just this one infinite moment. She felt small, but not insignificant, connected, as if she was part of something far greater than herself. And maybe that was the most beautiful feeling of all. What she was really looking for. Amira had traveled across the world. She had seen fire and ice, mountains and oceans, cities and silence. She had stood in places so beautiful they didn't feel real. But in the end, that wasn't what stayed with her. It was the feeling, the quiet moments, the unexpected connections, the way the world had slowly changed her, not all at once, but piece by piece. She realized something she hadn't understood at the beginning. She wasn't searching for the most beautiful places on earth. She was learning how to see them. Because beauty isn't rare. It isn't hidden in faraway places. It's everywhere. In nature, in people, in moments we often overlook. Amira smiled as she continued down another road, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead. She wasn't chasing anything anymore. She didn't need to, because now she knew the most beautiful places on earth aren't just places you visit, they're places you feel. And once you learn to see them, you realize you've been surrounded by them.